Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, JJ. We are celebrating 200 episodes of JJ Meets World, the podcast that aims to introduce myself, JJ Gordon, to every single person on the planet. Tucker and I cover a lot of great ground in this. There's some reminiscing, there's some fan letters. We talk about QVC, and then I tell a sweet and touching story from my past. Plus, the ultimate Easter egg at the end of this episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprain. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
200, the big 200. An exciting time for us at JJ Meets World. Thank you so much to those of you who have been a part since the beginning, or the people who decided that they were going to jump on at the last minute and maybe only heard 1 or 2 episodes. This is a milestone that, to be honest, cards on the table, full disclosure, I didn't think we were ever going to hit. I just didn't see there being enough free time in the world to continue making this to the level and quality that we wanted, especially when the pandemic hit. And I would like to take a quick moment and say that Tucker Lucas, if it wasn't for his hard work as the producer as well as the engineer on this show, it definitely wouldn't have worked.
Oh, thank you, JJ.
So I appreciate that. And I thought, Tucker, we could start this episode off with some fan mail.
Ooh, fan mail. I love it.
All right. This first letter comes from Richard Fader of Fort Wayne, New Jersey. Mr. Fader asks, when you guys are choosing a guest, what goes into it? And that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Tucker, you do more booking of guests than I do. Maybe you'd like to share some of your insight?
Well, really, ultimately, you just want to know if a person's going to be interesting. And that's kind of one check mark you want to. That's one checkbox you want to check off. I'm going to say this phrase correctly here. But the other thing, too, is, do I think this person would be able to have a really good conversation with JJ, right? It's almost like I'm setting JJ up on non-romantic dates with people for the first time. So a lot of it just has to do with, is this person interesting? Would they mesh well with JJ? And a lot of it, too, is does this person have anything to do that JJ is interested in? So especially if I know if it's movies or food, JJ's there. But since we're trying to meet everyone on planet Earth, we step outside the box there. We've had doctors, we've had teachers, we've had blue-collar laborers, we've had artists, we've had parents, and we're going to keep going and keep finding more people to put on that list.
I think that every person has a story. So even the person who doesn't think that they have a story does, in fact, have some kind of a story. And so I think part of our job is to figure out what that is and to kind of explore. If you're a frequent listener of JJ Meets World, you probably note that when we're interviewing someone, something changes maybe around the 25-minute mark in our conversation, and they sort of drop their guard. I don't know what it is about that 25 to 30-minute mark, but people stop being the professional, what they think we are expecting them to be, and become a little more real with us. And those are my favorite moments. And not that their answers beforehand are not good or entertaining or worthwhile to listen to, but I think something happens when you stop representing something and you get to just be real.
Right. It's sometimes people kind of act like they're at a press conference or they're making a sales call because they're used to maybe some of the more traditional type interviews that you might hear on the radio or their podcasts. But once they realize that, no, we're just hanging out. Usually when I write to someone and ask them if they want to be on the show, the way I describe the show is I say it's long form conversational, like friends having coffee or beers. They might have a particular point of interest with their job or something that they do or who they are that we want to talk to them about. But oftentimes the tangents happen as they happen in regular conversations. So if JJ and them find that they love a movie or a food or a vacation destination or something, that's what we talk about. And we just kind of go that way. And also, I also let people know that we don't really edit anything out. We leave in the coughs and the sneezes, just because it preserves the integrity of feeling like you're having a real conversation with people. And I've never actually had anyone say, "Oh, no, please, make sure this is highly edited, make me sound smart." Everyone kind of seems to dig that the stakes are not high. We're just hanging out.
Our next letter comes from a Mr. Benjamin Parker of Queens, New York. Mr. Parker asks, what is your sleeping situation, clothing-wise? Well, Mr.
JJ and I do head to foot.
Yeah, but only when we can find a double bed.
Yeah.
No, that's a question that I think is interesting because I think each person makes a choice in their life of how they're going to sleep. I am an au natural sleeper, mainly because I run hot all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a big guy, so when it hits 90 degrees outside, I virtually melt. And so I want to be as cool as possible because I always believe you can layer up. It's harder. You can only get so naked.
Right.
So at night, I choose to sleep buck naked. And I've got 2 indoor cameras recording 24/7 in my house. And I know exactly which nooks and crannies I can run between without getting caught by the camera.
For me, it's undies typically. But that's the least remarkable thing of my sleeping setup. I have to lock my cats out of the room because cats are going to be up all night and I wouldn't get any sleep if they were in the room, which is unfortunate because when they do want to cuddle, they're amazing. And they're actually cuddling together on my bed right now. It's really sweet. I always have to have a fan. Even if it's the middle of winter, I need to have a fan. I also run hot. And at the very least, even if the fan isn't hitting me directly, I need that white noise. I need that whirring of something. And then oftentimes I also play a loop of a thunderstorm on my computer. So just for more white noise. And I have a very specific audio file that I've used over the years, which was from like a YouTube video. And it doesn't even have like a smooth repeat moment, right? Like it just sort of hard ends and then starts over again. But that's never bothered me. It's only like 15 minutes long, so I'm listening to the same 15-minute loop, but it's just background noise to me. So that's typically what I have running.
Mrs. Louise M. Dooley of Knoxville, Tennessee says, I listen to your show, but it makes me disgusted, so I can't eat when I listen. Nothing about the quality, just something about JJ's voice. Could you recommend a recipe you love? Oh, well, that's a great question. I guess, off the top of my head, if I'm going to recommend a recipe while you're feeling nauseous, it would probably be Sprite or 7-Up, whichever you have handy, and then some saltine crackers. Pretty easy.
I mean, I've gotten better at making eggs in quarantine.
Have you?
Frying an egg. Yeah, I've gotten better at it. I'm still not great. I'm at the point now where I can start to blame my tools. Because before it was, well, you just have zero skill whatsoever. Now I've got some skill, but now I'm grappling with the fact that I've got a really crappy frying pan and I've got a really crappy spatula. So pretty soon here, I'm going to treat myself once I've paid some vet bills here in July. Then I'll have some income I can use up on cookery. And I'm going to get myself a stainless steel frying pan and a stainless steel spatula.
Might I make a small recommendation to you?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have plastic spatulas, and I think those are awful. I think they're
That is what I have.
Yep.
Yeah.
A little melty on the edge sometimes and can kind of fray.
Yeah.
You want to get like a chef friend of mine told me that where it's at right now are silicone utensils, the ones that can take extremely high heat.
Uh-huh.
So I have those in a pair of tongs. I love them. I think they're fantastic. The stainless steel pan, you're right on the money. It's perfect. You just got to make sure that you don't warp it you got to let it cool down before you put it underwater. Don't immediately let it, steam or it'll warp.
Right.
But
My biggest thing is I want to avoid scratches because I like a moron have ruined so many nonstick frying pans because I'm not being careful with what I'm using to like scrape stuff out of there with.
Mm-hmm.
And I've ruined so many, like shortly even after buying them. So I need something that is just hardy, that I'm not going to worry about scraping at it, that I can cook a ton of stuff in it, that once it's cooled down is easy to clean. And so I think stainless steel is going to be where I'm going to go. I know I could do a lot too with cast iron, but I just don't want to deal with like the extra kind of steps you have to take with like reseasoning it. And, some people like before they clean it, they'll like cook it under the broiler or some shit. There's just too much work there. Once I get more advanced in cookery, then I'll go to some cast iron for some certain dishes. But right now I'm still dumb enough that I need training wheels. And so I think stainless steel is going to be the way to go.
I've got 2 follow-up questions to this. Number 1, are you weaving your meat at this point?
You're talking about bacon?
Yes.
I have not started doing that yet because, well, I guess I don't have it because I just haven't been, but I have been making a lot of bacon with my eggs. And I know this is an unremarkable thing to say, but my bacon, I time it perfectly. I've got it down. And of course, that changes every time you have a new oven because you're not quite sure exactly what the temp like is going to reach at, what dial setting. But I'm really good at paying attention to the bacon and turning it over enough times and cooking it just enough so that when I take it off the frying pan and I'm letting it sit on the paper towel, but its grease is still cooking it a little bit, so that it gets cooked to the perfect level when it's out of the pan and sitting on the plate.
Don't you wish we were to a point in science where pre-cooked crispy bacon is something you could just buy in the store and heat up quickly?
That's true. But it is nice to have that bacon grease then, because then I fry my egg in the bacon grease, or I'll also I'll take a bagel cut in half and I'll put the cut side down in the bacon grease and let it soak that up and just kind of fry a little bit. And then I'll put cream cheese on that. Oh my God, dude. That is so good.
Are you storing your bacon grease for any other purposes?
No, I use it all up. Like I actually, almost all the bacon grease, every time I make bacon, I almost always use it up with other food objects that I'm making at that time. So I'm not holding on to grease.
I hold on to bacon grease and sometimes pop popcorn with it. And it's delicious.
Interesting.
We've really, we ran into a tough time as a world human race when coffee stopped coming in coffee tins and they're shipped in plastic containers now, because we had a coffee tin underneath every sink we've ever owned in my family that was essentially like our fat can.
Okay.
It was from bacon fat. And so you could pull that out when you were making fried chicken.
Okay.
All other great opportunities. But so now I use a mason jar, which it serves the exact same purpose, right? There's nothing different about the glass jar with a removable lid that there was about the coffee tin, with the exception of now I have to look at the grease.
Right.
And so if I found maybe if I just cover it up or paint on the outside, but something's got to happen because it is not healthy to look at. Like, for example, I've fried up 1/2 pound of bacon recently, and it is probably a 1/2 inch or more in this mason jar. And it's got like the flecks floating in it. And it's unsightly.
And if I remember correctly, my mom would save bacon grease or other like meat grease, like if she fried burgers, and then would from time to time use it as a treat for the dog. like basically mix just a little bit of grease in with the dog's dry food. It's just like a little extra treat, which I thought was kind of nice.
Hey, and speaking of Grease, the Grease Mega Mix is currently my favorite song to dance to at a wedding. Are you familiar with the Grease Mega Mix?
I mean, I probably am. I'm familiar with Grease.
It's the best songs from the movie in a medley. So
it's been produced in Fargo like 30 different times. So if you live in this area, you should know what Grease is.
Right, but the Mega Mix is special because the Mega Mix is all the songs at once. It'd be like somebody who's addicted to drugs getting to try all the drugs at once.
Right.
Like in one magical McFlurry situation. So the other thing I wanted to go back to about this was, have you ever purchased anything off of like a television infomercial?
Never.
Have you ever been tempted?
I know I've seen things that I thought, hey, that could be cool, but I never followed through. But I couldn't even tell you right now off the top of my head what one of them would have been.
I'm going to tell you about a couple that I've wanted to purchase, and then one of the purchases that I know of that exists in my house currently.
Are you a QVC shopper?
I am not. In fact, I was just talking to someone the other day about how I can't believe QVC exists still. In a world where everyone is shopping online, you would have thought that QVC died a death long before a brick and mortar store would, because at least with brick and mortar stores, you have instant gratification. With QVC, right, you're still waiting and you're probably making payments. But someone told me that actually QVC is thriving right now.
Well, I think people like the presentation. They like watching QVC, and then they end up buying something. So if it was just for the shopping alone, then I think they wouldn't do as well, obviously, as Amazon. But people like having things presented to them. It seems to like make them want it more.
Interesting, because that's certainly not how I roll. When I watch these things, I'm like, oh my God, why would anyone waste their time? But I do love QVC bloopers. Oh, do I love QVC bloopers. So I will tell you first about a product that I wanted to buy a long time ago called the Red Devil. When I was a young man, we had 3 television stations at my lake cabin that came in, and one of them played for an entire summer an infomercial on a loop from midnight to 6 a.m., and it was for the Red Devil, which was a portable propane-powered grill that it showed people taking it to the beach and taking it camping or tailgating. And the thing that was interesting about it is the grilling surface was solid and it was concave like a wok.
Okay.
So it showed people making pasta dishes. It showed people making, like steaks, but then you could also, make ramen if you really wanted to, or stir fry. And so it was like very versatile. And then it had this weird domed top that you would put on top of it that actually would make it work like an oven. So it showed people baking a meatloaf, but you could also bake a cake.
Okay.
And so
it was versatile, and it was making the things that you loved.
Right. That is absolutely 100%. I haven't thought about that, but you're probably right on the money. So eventually I was like, you know what? And I remember this later on. I'm like, I'm going to buy myself a Red Devil. I want to be like cool and get the Red Devil. The infomercial itself comes from 1998. Okay. So that's how old this is. But here's the deal. This grill was recalled in 2002. And here's why. In cooperation with the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, Walmart stores of Bentonville, Arkansas, is recalling about 60,000 Red Devil gas grills sold at Walmart. About 155,000 of these grills were manufactured in Encino, California. Because the manufacturer is out of business, the CPSC issued a warning about these grills in May 2002. The product's design allows consumers to light the grill at an air intake tube instead of at the burner. Though the grill appears to function normally, gas inside the air intake tube ignites. This tube can reach temperatures of up to 750 degrees Fahrenheit and present a burn hazard to customers. In some earlier grills, the heat produced by lighting the grill at the air intake tube damaged the plastic support piece and caused the grill to fall to the ground. When it collapses, flames from the grill can burn nearby consumers and ignite surrounding combustibles.
Jesus.
So essentially, they built part of a grill out of plastic, and
God.
when it falls over, it becomes literally a red devil. So I'm bummed that I was never able to get one because I thought it would be fun to make a cake at the beach.
Yeah, but you know what you also didn't get were first-degree burns.
Right. Also, 750 degrees Fahrenheit, I think that's beyond just like could cause burns. That is losing a limb.
Yeah, for sure.
And certainly, like if you're at a tailgating party with your friends, you could blow up the car you're next to. If you're at the beach, that's hot enough to turn sand into glass.
So I wonder how many times that happened before the recall finally kicked in.
Well, I mean, to recall 60,000 grill or 600,000 grills and 155,000 of them, like from a single manufacturer, that is intense. So to me, it sounds like it's a full product recall. It's not just recalling some of them; it's a full product recall. So, you know, it's a
catastrophic design flaw.
Yeah, which it's in 4 years after the infomercial hit. I'd feel pretty bad if I was in that infomercial and I was now a harbinger of death.
Right.
So
hopefully it lived the life of what most things probably do, which get bought off QVC, which they use it once and it never gets used again.
Right. Or not used at all.
Right.
Becomes something. Now, and I want to be clear. This is an infomercial, not a QVC.
Oh, my apologies.
Yep. So this was a produced 60-minute long commercial for this product.
Got it. Okay.
There was nothing live about it. Nothing like, and if you call right now, although I've always wondered because I see all those ads even on the 30-second, 60-second commercials where it's like, and if you call in the next 10 minutes, we'll double we'll give you 2 slice and dicers. How do they always know that the commercial is playing at that time is what I wondered as a kid. Looking back, I'm like, you friggin' idiot. They're just going to give you 2 of these anyway because they're pieces of shit. no one wants to buy them, and
gotta move these grills.
They cost 1/10 of what you're paying. So stop being so stupid and exercise more.
Were Foreman grills sold like that before they were in stores?
They were.
Okay, that's what I remember. I remember seeing the Foreman grill, thinking, "Oh, that seems so much easier than just regular cooking," but it's not. It's actually really dumb. Like it's good for paninis, I'd say.
Yep.
But beyond that, you ever try just cleaning a Foreman grill after you've used it? It's the worst.
Is George Foreman still alive?
At the
time of this recording, I'll tell you. At the time of this recording, yes, he is not yet passed away.
Okay.
But his Wikipedia page includes a large section on the George Foreman grill. He's made an estimated total of 200+ million from the endorsement.
Oof. Wow.
Substantially more than he earned as a boxer.
Wow. That's crazy.
Interesting. Also, the company that made the George Foreman grill was Sultan Incorporated. So a bunch of sultans who got together to start a business. I don't know. So the other thing I always wanted to buy that I saw on infomercial is a Ron Popeil product.
Okay.
So people might remember the Pocket Fisherman or Spray On Hair. That was all Ron Popeil. He made a countertop-sized rotisserie that his phrase for it was set it and forget it. So he would get the studio audience. He'd say set it and the audience would say forget it. And he showed all the things that you could make in this rotisserie where essentially you skewer some meat, you pop it in there, you put the time on. The next time you get to that Showtime, that's what it's called, the Showtime rotisserie grill. The next time you got to that rotisserie, it was ready to eat. Done. Easy. And it was the same type of science that goes into the shawarma or leg of lamb grills that you see at Greek restaurants, where it spins and there's one part of it that's really hot. And so it goes by the hot part and then it spins around and then you hit the hot part again. And so you're slowly cooking something by occasionally introducing it to a heat bulb.
Okay.
But I wanted the Showtime so bad that when I was 13 years old, I asked for it for my birthday.
Because it made all your favorite things.
It makes all my favorite things. I'm like, Mom, ribs, potatoes, and all these things. So I asked for it. I did not get it. And
Aw.
I think it's because I never provided my parents with the information that they really needed to get it for me. For example, like a 1-800 number. This is the time before the internet. And it was sad. Now, the one thing that exists in my home to this day that I still know, the only thing I know of that was purchased from an infomercial is coincidentally my dad, the man who went shopping twice in the entire time I ever knew him, purchased a set of CDs called Roadhouse Classics. And they were a mixture of kind of blues and rock, like hillbilly rock music.
Okay.
From it's like I don't even recognize any of the artists, but they're all people like Mo Keb Billings and the sweet sounds of Joey Chesterton. And so those CDs are still in this house. There's 6 discs that are part of that set. And I remember my dad having them in his car, and he probably listened to them a couple of times, but he was an AM radio guy most of the time. And I just thought, what was it about this infomercial that you were watching the Masters golf tournament and you saw this and you went, oh, I gotta buy that. So much so that you picked up a telephone that you had to walk to because it was on a cradle somewhere. And then you bothered to go get your wallet so that you could give them your credit card number.
Right.
I just don't know what it is about this. And my dad's never been a guy who's been into the blue or who was into the blues. I just thought this was the most bizarre thing. And so I always wanted to see the infomercial for it and just see what it was that caught my dad's attention. Like, did they call him out by name? Or they like, J.D. Gordon, you know what your life is missing? The classics of the Roadhouse. So, but I've known other people who've purchased products, and in the Mall of America in Minneapolis, there's that As Seen on TV.
Mhm.
It's a store where you can buy all the products that were on there. And I don't know. I've never walked in there and said, wow, this is a really great bargain, or this feels like a really quality made product.
Right.
That
Right.
being said, I want to try those copper pans really bad that say that nothing will ever stick to them no matter what.
It feels like there's a little bit of crossover between all that stuff and like what you find in Sky Mall.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of that. Like someone invented something that no one's ever going to need, but lots of people are going to want.
So being that this is our 200th episode, I thought that I would talk about a couple of notable 200s that have happened in my life. Okay.
Okay.
So, I'm well beyond it now, but I hit 200 days of marriage.
Ooh.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. In the late spring of 2019. And Jill and I were together for a long time before we got married. And so I think that marriage, really the big difference is that she now has a ring on her finger.
Uh-huh.
But I will say this. The second I got married, something changed within me. Something is not the same. And if anyone's a fan of the musical Wicked, that one was for you.
What would you say this thing is? I'm not. I don't know anything about Wicked. So
it's this. It's the fact that the first time I went to the hospital with Jill, so she had to go to the walk-in clinic. All I wanted was to take the pain away from her, and I didn't know what to do. And I just, I was like, I got to be supportive. I've got to be supportive. And I've taken friends to the hospital. I've taken family members. This was a different type of feel as far as how I wanted to take pain away and do something to help. And so that happened within that first 200 days. And that was, it was life-changing, if I'm going to be honest. And I can imagine it's something sort of like what a parent feels once you have a child,
right.
No matter which way. So whether you adopt, whether you foster, whether you have a child biologically, whether you have a surrogate, the second that child relies on you as their caregiver, as the person who's supposed to shelter them, I feel like you instantly get that feeling now for other human beings.
Okay.
And it makes me believe that that's why Liam Neeson is so hell-bent on getting his daughter back and Taken, and then Taken 2. And then by that time, it's like, Liam, why just keep track of your daughter? Don't let her keep getting took.
Yeah, just kind of along the lines of like marriage and children. I mean, one thing that coronavirus quarantine has really showed me is like, I've had a good run living by myself. I don't want just a roommate again, but man, being alone sucks. Like it really, really sucks. And I know that everyone's situation is different and that there's been a lot of, people writing and talking about whether it was good or not for their relationships to be like stuck inside with each other. But it kind of just makes me go, you know what? It's really time that I start working on that next chapter in my life. So I'm hoping that we can wrap this whole coronavirus thing up at some point here soon so I can get back out there in the world again and try to build that family, because most people my age are married or they have kids. People in this area of the world get married actually fairly young. You and Jill are kind of outliers in that, where you waited a number of years. I mean, your sister and your brother-in-law, they're the real outliers. I mean, how long were they dating for before they got married?
Oh, I think that this would have been their 19th anniversary or 20th in March.
Wow.
And they only got married in December.
Right, exactly. So
yeah, I think the Gordons have trouble committing. That's got to be what it is.
Families where it's at.
Right. I find that to be very true, if I'm going to be honest. So another notable 200 is in the 20. Let's see. Wait, what was this? The ninth season of The Simpsons. They end up with episode 200, and the episode is called "Trash of the Titans," in which Homer Simpson runs for the job of Springfield's sanitation commissioner. Steve Martin guest stars as Ray Patterson, the incumbent commissioner, and U2 play themselves after requesting an appearance on the show. U2 asked to be on The Simpsons. That's how you know you've made it.
God, I haven't thought about The Simpsons in forever.
So I vividly remember this episode because Homer runs for sanitation commissioner based on all these promises that he can do. And he ends up spending the entire sanitation budget for a year within the first week because they do a parody of the song The Candyman.
Okay.
And it's like, who can take this diaper? I don't mind at all. Who can clean me up before the big policeman's ball? And it's about how the garbage man can come and do all of these things for you. And it's a pretty good song. This is during the Alf Clausen years, so like it's really well done. As far
Are you still watching the show?
What was that?
Are you still watching the show?
No, I haven't watched anything post really like 2001.
Okay.
But I am literally every episode up until then, I've probably seen 30 or 40 times.
I have kind of been thinking about maybe trying to do a Simpsons marathon where I watch everything. And it would take a long time to do, but that's like part of the reason why you do it, right?
Yep.
Is you get a really solid sense of the change in direction and the feel. And I just remember being at an age where it was actually kind of taboo for me to get to watch The Simpsons. My mom didn't want us to watch it because, Homer would choke Bart.
Eat my shorts.
Right. It was crude and rude. And yeah, I want to go back and do that.
I think a lot of people had that same feeling. And then, of course, Beavis and Butthead was banned from folks. Right. I will tell you this much. So I've been rewatching through The Simpsons on Disney Plus, and it's been especially great now that they've fixed the aspect ratio of it.
They did fix it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you can choose to watch it in a letterbox, which is, for those of you who don't know and are listening to this, do you remember when televisions used to be square? Well, now they're widescreen, but when you watch an old show that was square, sometimes they'll stretch it out so it fits your entire screen, but then they chop off the top and the bottom So in this case of The Simpsons, you actually are missing sight gags that are going on everywhere. So for me, the fact that they made it so that you can watch it in its original format is great. FX ran into this problem when they got the Simpsons catalog and started playing it on television. They cropped it, and everyone was hoping Disney would make a better choice. They didn't until fans demanded that it absolutely has to be fixed. But
That's really surprising to me.
What was that?
This is really surprising to me that they would make that mistake.
It is, but at the same time, I understand where they're coming from, right? Like, do they want to do this for every single television show that they have on there? And there's a certain number of people who don't care, who just want it to fill their whole phone or their whole iPad.
Right, but they've got more money than God, and they're printing money every single day. And I mean, come on, man. Hire some editors to go in there and just make sure everything's letterboxed.
They are losing money every single day. They're losing $30 million a day by not being able to open their theme park.
Oh, I mean, during coronavirus, sure. At that point, they weren't, though.
Right. Before then, they were just like, I'm surprised we weren't using Disney dollars to pay our taxes.
Right.
But here's the deal. If you start on that marathon, I think you're in for a treat, because every morning I watch it while I eat my breakfast, and I tell Jill I'm going behind headphones so that I can wear headphones and it doesn't disturb her. And she hears me laughing. Like, the amount of laughter that I am adding to a blank room is insane, because some of those gags and some of those jokes are just as good today as they were almost 30 years ago. So I highly recommend it. Other notable 200s that I think we have, of course, 1976 was the bicentennial of the United States of America. I'm told that it was a lot of fun, and people spent a whole year kind of celebrating America. I don't think that I will live to see the tricentennial in 2076.
Right. Well, I mean, you don't know. That's another 50 years. You could definitely live that long.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I've got one of my most prized possessions, actually, is a bicentennial Marvel Comics calendar that my dad had. That is still in really good condition, and I keep it on my bookshelf because I just think as an object it's so great, because they give every month a superhero, and then they give like the different birthdays of the comic artists and writers, and little important moments in like Marvel Comics histories in there. So 1976 holds a tender spot in my heart just because I've got that calendar.
Oh, that's very nice. I think that's awesome. Do you ever look like, do you know the next time that calendar lines up with our current calendar? Like, could you say, like, in 2023, I actually could use this calendar?
That's actually a really good question. I do not know. I'd have to find out.
You should figure that out. Because to me, I think that is the only reason you hold on to old calendars, is because you know that sometime in the next 50 years, that date set will be valid again and you can use it.
Well, this particular calendar is a work of art. Like, it's actually really cool. So just as an object, it's neat.
So not to have a hard left from what you're talking about, but my last 200 is a story from my own personal life. And that was my first job. So my first job that was consistent, and it was just me, and I was actually responsible for something solely, not just mindless grunt work to, following somebody else and helping them with it, I was a dishwasher at the Fargo Elks Club. And I wanted to buy a Nintendo 64, which retailed for just under $200 at $199.99. I was a dishwasher on Thursday nights for 3.5 hours, and I was getting paid, I think, like $8 an hour.
Okay.
So imagine how many paychecks it would take to save up to be able to buy an N64. I did. I worked every single Thursday. I took every single paycheck, and I had my parents help me open up a savings account. And I started putting that money away and putting that money away and putting that money away and putting that money away. In the midst of that, I also had like a birthday, and I knew that if I asked for just cash on my birthday, it would be tempting to spend that. And a lot of people don't like to give straight up cash. So
right.
I asked for video games for the N64, knowing that I
Oh,
didn't have it.
smart.
Right. So I believe that's how I got Pilot Wings 64.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yep.
Classic game.
Because I guess Mario came with the 64, right?
Correct. Which, why don't they do that with systems anymore? Why don't they include a video game with them right off the bat? Seems silly to me.
Yeah, because I mean, that's why Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is my favorite video game of all time, because that was the game that came with my Sega Genesis. So that was the first one I could play.
And it was labeled
And I-
not for resale, right?
Yep, exactly. And I played that like crazy. I still play that game today.
So I saved and I saved and I saved, and I finally was able to afford this. And I remember being so excited, and I went to Kmart on South University, which is now defunct. And I went in there. I said, I'm here to buy a N64. I had all the cash in my hand, and I had like just barely gotten to $200. And I rode my bike over there too. I rode my bike from my house to the US Bank, where I cleaned out my savings account. I probably looked like a runaway. And then I biked over to Kmart. When I got there, they got it from behind a glass case. Remember how they used to keep them behind the glass
Yep.
case?
Oh, yeah.
And they rung it up, and I had no idea of tax.
Oh.
So there was tax, and I came up about $1.50 short.
Oh.
And I was just devastated. And I had planned to have a sleepover that night with a couple of my friends.
Oh, no.
Supposed to be the big, like, hey guys, we're gonna play N64 all night long. I was also a subscriber to Nintendo Power, and back in the day, they used to send out VHS tapes that were essentially these like 5-minute commercials for what was new and what was happening in the world of video games. And so I had a fresh one recently that had previewed Mario Kart. And
Okay.
I mean, I just could not be more excited about what was about to take place. And so the woman who rang me up saw that I was $1.50 short, and she said, listen, if you promise to come back here and bring $1.50, I will loan it to you. And I said,
oh, wow.
Oh, yes, please, 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 please. I rode my bike back home, and I had like a piggy bank. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a piggy bank that looked like a bottle of Pepsi Cola.
Okay.
So I opened that thing up, and it's full of change. I took the change to US Bank, and they cashed it out, and it was $4 and change, however much I had. And so I again biked over to the Kmart, and this woman, like, I wasn't there anymore. So I assume her shift was over for the day, whatever. And so I said, oh, I've got to give her this money. And the person there said, well, we can't just hold on to your money. We can't hold on to your money. That's not, we're not going to just take some kid's money he wants to give to Sheila.
Right.
And so this was on a Friday. Well, on Saturday I was busy. On Sunday I was busy. So the earliest I could make it back there would probably be like the next Friday when I was done with school. So I rode my bike there the next Friday, and she wasn't working. And I never got this woman the $1.50.
Oh, no.
And if she's listening to this, I don't even know what her name is. But if she by any chance is listening to this, or this story, if your mom or your aunt ever told you a story about how some kid stiffed her for $1.50, you can let her know that I will gladly give it to her. I would be so happy to send her $3.50 at this point for interest. But I also think that I'd like to pay her this compliment, which is I mastered so many games on the N64 that, including during the pandemic when I broke the machine out so I could play it again, that thing has been almost like a real friend to me, in the fact that, like, I was able to play those games, and they kept me company in a time when I didn't have a lot of friends and when I was probably my most introverted self. And so that investment of $1.50 directly coincides with the person I am today. So this podcast is due to the $200 that I made working at the Elks Club, and the extra $1.50 that this anonymous woman at Kmart gave me to make this happen.
Aw, thanks, lady from Kmart.
Yeah, thanks, lady from Kmart.
Does Kmart exist still?
I think that there are a couple locations, but it's certainly not in our region anymore.
I was going to say, I wonder what it would take to track her down.
So, okay, interesting thing that you asked that. Last summer, during a torrential downpour, I was part of a remote that was going on, a radio remote, and I'm chatting with the manager, and I said, so, like, how long have you worked at Kmart? And he goes, my entire life. I started here when I was a teenager. It was my first job, and I was getting ready to go to school, and they offered me an assistant manager's position. And so rather than going to college, I entered the workforce. I was the assistant manager, worked my way up to manager. And so this guy had worked at Kmart his entire life, and he was probably now he had grown children at this point. And so I told him this story, and I said, do you think you could ever figure out who this woman was? And he goes, gosh, it'd be kind of difficult. I'm like, and he said it would be difficult because it would be hard to, figure someone from that year. And I'm like, I can actually tell you the date that this happened. Like, I can tell you the exact day. If I find a calendar right now, I can go back and figure it out. And because it was the first Friday in May in that came out in 97, right? And so it would have been 1998. It was the first Friday in May in 1998. And I said, does that help you? And he goes, no. Like, what do you think? I keep everyone's schedules going back there? I really would like to figure out who this woman was. He goes, a lot of people have worked at Kmart, but he told me that he'd help me, and I haven't gotten any fruition to it yet. That's why I'm hoping that some of our fan mail will come in, and she'll say, like, I'm Nancy. I worked at, and by the way, I guess you're going to have to, if you want to claim this $1.50, I need you to describe yourself a little bit, or what you looked like in May of 1998, because anyone could just write in and say, oh, I'm Nancy and I want money. So
they need the $3.50. A lot of souls have passed through this Kmart.
lot of energy's been collected inside of these walls, man. So as we wrap this up for our 200th episode, Tucker has actually put together something special for you guys. I'm not sure how many people actually know that these exist, Tucker.
Right. So at the end of every episode of JJ Meets World, we have the credits, and then we have a little Easter egg. And the Easter egg is just whatever goofy flippin' thing JJ wants to say. And so I've actually collected all the Easter eggs from all 199 episodes before this, and we're going to play them for you now. It just in sequence, without any music and without any other context. So it's probably going to sound like absolute nonsense. But these are all the Easter eggs from the previous 199 episodes. And I just want to throw out a couple of stats too, JJ. Over these 200 episodes, we have produced over 276 hours of podcast content. We've had around 164 guests, and our podcast has been downloaded in 66 countries. So, we're still getting JJ to meet the world, but so far much of the world has met JJ over this time. And we thank everyone who's been listening. And here's to the next 200.
Wow. That is absolutely amazing. I'm so proud of it. And I guess, without further ado, let's listen to the sweet sounds of the Easter egg that accompany the last few moments of each episode of JJ Meets World. Thank you, listeners, for 200 amazing episodes. I can't wait for the 300th.
JJ Meets World.
And folks, just remember, this is the time when you do what you want to do. Play another episode of JJ Meets World. Are we done? Are we done with this one? I've got an appointment to get my hair cut. Are we done? Okay, good. Later, everybody. I guess this is the end of this particular podcast. Thank you guys very much for joining me here. And if you didn't like this, tell everyone that you were watching the news. All right, gang, that's it. It's time to turn the lights off, go home, eat some pizza, and forget all about what I did this afternoon. I suppose that does it, huh? Is it time? Should I clean up in here? I know I left a lot of wrappers. So I didn't tell you this before we started this podcast, but I decided to wear flip-flops today. That sound? We didn't get any of that sound on the recording, right? Oh, thank God. And if you happen to have a personal connection to the Tom Hanks, we'd really like to get him on this program at some point. We could fly him out here to where we record. We could fly out there and meet him. And just to be clear, I'm not looking for Tom Hanks from the movie Big. I'm looking for Tom Hanks from Pittsburgh. That Tom Hanks. So don't waste my time with the guy who was in Forrest Gump. I guess that when we end an episode, it should have something that feels final. But after this, I've got to go and figure out what kimchi is. I keep seeing it on menus, but I'm not quite sure what it's cabbage, I think, but I'm not sure. I am always just slightly worried when I wear jeans that have holes in them, because people are going to wonder, did he put those holes in there, or did he buy them with the holes in them already? And I don't like for people to have anxiety like that when I'm around. So I either wear no pants or full pants. There's no in between for me. So if you see me with holes in my jeans, I'm probably being kidnapped. We're going to end this one by taking some questions that have been emailed into the studio. Question number 1 is, do you do these naked or are you wearing clothes? Well, we're wearing clothes, but not the kind that you'd imagine. Question number 2, when will I get a refund for my stainless steel? Nope, this is from one of my Amazon seller accounts. Hold on. I guess we had one question, so there we go. We answered it. And now I'd like to read to you some names of wind chimes you can buy. Windy Wings Butterfly Wind Chime, Hummingbird Flutter Wind Chime, Pluto Wind Chime, Sun, Moon, and Stars Wind Chime, Jellyfish Glass Wind Chime, Meditation Bells. That's the one. That's the one I'm going to buy. I think the thing is if we got a power strip that had more than 4 plugins, we'd be able to get to Mars sooner as scientists. I always notice that there are really nice cat condos, but no one's really building, cat low-income housing, or, ideas like multiple cat homes. Always just seems to be one. And there's always a little bell hanging from a string, but you don't see that in humans in there where they live. There's no bells on strings. Are we missing out? I don't know about you, but I don't think that socks and sandals are that bad. There are definitely worse things that we wear, like Crocs. Last, but certainly not least, folks, here's a reminder. Do not use an abrasive scrubbing pad when cleaning a cast iron skillet. You're just going to take all of that quality seasoning away. It's a bad idea. Secondly, if you have slippery hands, do not, I repeat, do not handle cast iron skillets while wearing open-toed shoes. People have worked so hard on creating Ziploc bags that hold food fresh for so long, but here's what I want to create: a Ziploc bag that has the sturdiness of a Ziploc bag, but is edible, so that I can put stuff like a bunch of burrito ingredients into it and then eat it afterwards. So really what I'm saying is that Tupperware you can eat. I've had not one, but several dreams where I'm married to Angela Lansbury, and we're incredibly happy in all of them. Wow, gang. 20 episodes. We did it. 20 whole episodes in the can. They're done. But now I'm going to work on 21 and 22 and 23, and then we'll see where we are at that point. I don't know what day it is today. because people are listening to this on different days. So I don't want to say, I want to end it with like happy Monday, because maybe they're listening to it on a Thursday or a Saturday, or maybe the aliens are listening to this and they've got a whole other calendar of days. This is the type of stuff that keeps me awake at night. This was a long episode and we talked about some really funny stuff out there. And this is my plea to you guys. See some local comedy. Just go out there, check out an open mic. They're happening all the time. See a comedy show, whether it's an improv troupe or sketch. You're going to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, well, then I hope that you can find something that you enjoy in your cubicle. If I check into a hotel and they tell me that the Wi-Fi isn't free, I instantly say, I'm never booking a room here again. We should just include Wi-Fi. It's a utility. You tell me you're going to charge me for water? You are? Well, I guess I won't be staying at this Best Western again. All right. Listen, I didn't want to tell you this before we started, but I had just the worst horseradish yesterday. And I feel it right here in my throat. Could you hear that through the whole podcast? Do you think that McDonald's ever gets sick of putting Mick stuff in front of it? Like they got McCafe, McDonald's, McDouble. Do you think that they're ever like, you guys, come on, let's just give up on this for a little bit? They're like, no, it's a McNapkin. All right. Make sure to McMop the floor later. Okay. Well, gang, that does it. We're ready to turn the lights out here, and we have to because we are burning candles inside the studio. Apparently, we forgot to pay some sort of an electrical bill, and so the wax is almost down to the bottom. And as everyone knows, once the candles go out, the darkness takes over. Hey, I need to change shirts. I think I sweat through this one, but it was supposed to be hypercolor when I bought it, and I don't think it is because it's just always blue. Every week we say wrap it up, and I always think like, wouldn't it be funny if we had like a little picture of a mummy that we put on like when they're listening to it and a little mummy image comes up. But one time I made myself a mummy and then I was the last toilet paper in the house, and so I was really in a pickle. I think I have appendicitis. Like my side hurts really bad, but it's higher than you'd think. But I got such a big torso. I don't know if my appendix is higher than it should be for other people. Is this where it is? I hurt so bad. I think that if we have pencils that we give out to people, we could really up the podcast listeners in elementary schools because they've got recess. There is some kid who's a loner sitting alone at recess. And if he's got J.D. Me's World pencil, he's like, oh, yeah, well, my parents gave me a cell phone. Maybe I should just listen to it. I'm so alone. I really wish that we would stop having these burping contests before we start this because I'm very lightheaded right now. And I was supposed to remember a phone number because my grandma's very sick and I just don't. I suppose at this point, this is where we're supposed to wrap things up. But I was thinking I don't like using the term wrap things up because I always think like, oh, what are we going to fill this with shredded lettuce? He did not check my ID before we got in that car. And that makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And I'm thinking about telling him to get a checklist together because I could have been the world's #1 Tesla thief. I don't know why no one's ever thought about this, but pop-up brunch seems to be like a really good idea. And I think it should be called Toastbusters. I ain't afraid of no toast. I've got a lot of spit in my mouth, which is weird because I'm normally not a spitty person. But when I get enough spit in my mouth, I think, oh, I don't need to drink as much water today. On my way here today, I saw a couple of kids and one of them was skateboarding and one of them was riding a bike. And I thought to myself, I wonder which one is the leader, because I would assume the one with the skateboard, but really the one with the bike was bigger and leading the pack. So afterwards, I'm going to go and try and find them and see if they need a podcaster. When I was a little kid, I was afraid of gremlins. Like, I thought gremlins were real. And so I slept for many years with a light on. And now whenever I sleep with a light on, I wet the bed. I was thinking earlier today about how I have only played Boggle once, but I don't think that we're playing by the exact rules. I think we're just kind of making it up as we go along because last time I checked, there's no syringes in Boggle. I need to borrow some money, but I need you to not ask why. And then I need to not pay you back right away. So I'm going to put your thumb up and you tell me when it's too much. 7, 9, 15. Okay. 9, 10. $9 it is. Thanks. We talked about cuddling and hugging earlier, but we did not talk about hand holding. Why is that? Because that's what the devil wants you to do. Hold hands. I guess that's about it. We're going to wrap up this episode of JJ Meets World. We are thinking about doing a subscription box, and it's going to be filled with old underpants that not Tucker Eye's underpants. Don't worry, other people's underpants. And so if you're interested in subscribing to that, you can send Tucker an instant message on MySpace, and he'll fill out the form for you. Speaking of subjects, when I was in school, I always wished that there was a subject that I was the only kid who took that class. And so it would just be me and the teacher, and we would form this like alliance together where he would learn more from me than I did from him. And the closest I've ever gotten to something like that is I got trapped in a well once, and one of the guys trying to get me out, the harness broke. And so we were both in this well for like 4 hours face to face. What is the unacceptable number of X's you would see on your clothes before you would consider taking magic pills to lose weight? Maybe 4 X's, 5 X's, 7 X's, 9 X's, 13 X's, 12 X's, 12 X's. Thanks. I've got 6 keys on my key ring, and one of them will unlock a chastity belt, but I don't know which one's which. And I know that nothing kills the mood quite like, oh, hold on, let me try this one. Oh, hold on, let me try this other one. Let me try this one. So I'm going to just go around trying random locks until I can say, oh, these keys all work in a standard lock, until this one gets some nail polish. And that's how I'll know which one's which. Eddie Murphy made a movie called Meet Dave, where it was about a bunch of aliens in a ship that looked like Eddie Murphy. And so it looked like a human was walking around. And the thing that is the weirdest part of the promotion is they built a giant Eddie Murphy head on the front of a car, and they drove it around America. There's a car big enough where you could crawl up into the nose. Here's my question. Who owns that car now? Who owns the Murphy Mobile? To eBay. At the beginning of this episode, I tried to have a really, really good Godzilla roar. It didn't end up the way I'd like to. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do this. If Godzilla were into jazz, it would sound a little like. Play it. I'm eating Tokyo. And as I've been using the word Journey a lot lately, and I just realized I don't own a single Journey album. I think we should take a real key from the tutors here and ask ourselves the important question, which is, how many wives do you think I'm going to have? 7. I want to take a moment here to acknowledge some sad news. I recently found out that the dog from the show Wishbone is dead. And he's been dead for a long time. And I think I and the rest of the internet have failed to grieve appropriately for this spunky little pooch. And so let's have a quick moment of silence in honor of Wishbone, whose real name was probably something like Peanut. Hey, speaking of meat, so what do you think is the best meat of all the meats? If I had to pick what the best meat was, it would be free meat. That does it for what we're doing here today. And I would like to just tell everyone that I don't like quarter zip anything. If you're going to have a hooded sweatshirt, have it be able to zip all the way down. A quarter zip is the dry hump of zipping. Speaking of going everywhere, I got a really old map and I found it in my car, and there's all of these markings all over it. And I started to follow them. They're all public restrooms. Speaking of dealer's choice, I learned how to play craps when I was in Las Vegas, and I was much better after I had been drinking than I was when I was sober. And then I was telling someone I learned how to play craps. And they're like, dude, that's roulette. So I guess as we wrap things up today, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody. Usually I have a funny little quip at the end of this thing, but instead I just want to give a sincere thank you to everybody who listens, and it means a lot. And I feel like you're part of my family, and I feel like I want to buy each and every one of you a copy of Forrest Gump for Christmas, and it's going to be on VHS. And I know that's an inconvenience because you probably don't own a VCR anymore, but I mean, that's the best format to watch Forrest Gump in. Full screen. So if you watch it on your big TV, it's going to look weird. But we'll be together. My baloney has a first name. It's Tucker. My baloney has a second name. It's also Tucker. My baloney has a third name because it recently got married. Then it's Tucker. Tucker loves baloney. Baloney loves Tucker. If there were 50 cupcakes in front of me and I was told one of them was poisoned, I would probably feel comfortable eating 20 cupcakes before I really weighed the consequences. When I was in 7th grade, an issue of Sports Illustrated came out that had 3D glasses attached. And it was the swimsuit edition. And I remember that it was probably the most shameful periodical purchase I'd ever made until I was old enough to buy dirty magazines. And from then on, oh man, every week I was buying dirty truck tires or filthy bathtubs, all of these things that just had nothing but dirty, grimy stuff in there, old motel room sheets. That one I subscribed to. Hoo ha, hoo ha, hoo ha, hoo ha. Remember the movie Toys? That was the song that played during Toys when the military was taking over the toy factory. Ready to have your mind blown? The evil general in Toys is also Albus Dumbledore from movies 3 through 7-2 in the Harry Potter universe. Mind blown. There are certain brands that I always call by their brand name. So I don't say tissue, I say Kleenex. I don't say Band-Aid. I don't say adhesive bandage, I say Band-Aid. And I will never be like, could you hand me some petroleum jelly? I will always say, give me some KY. It turns out that raw chicken wasn't actually chicken. It was just a plastic bag. When I would fake sick and be at home, I would usually eat a lot of orange Danish rolls. And one time I made myself sick. So it was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm designing a pair of underpants right now that also function as regular pants. So I'm trying to think if they should be called outer pants or if they should be pants. But anyway you cut it, I like the word underpants. I don't wear underwear under my costume. We were both wrong. The best fast food place is Burger Time because they've got corn dogs, onion rings, and chili dogs. Can't believe we forgot about that. Wait a minute. Whoa. Stop. So you're telling me that this #1 issue of the Uncanny X-Men is worth a lot of money? I didn't know that. Like how much? Like $7? $8? No, pay more than $10. Before Bill left, I asked for a little bit of his beard hair. He said no. One of my jobs was for a guy who couldn't see. He wasn't blind, but he just had trouble seeing. And he kept calling me his eye dog. And I just did not care for that so much. And so one day I said, if you call me your eye dog one more time, I'm leaving. And so I went and I slammed the door and he kept calling for me over and over. But then he's like, I guess you must have left. I was in his house the whole time. I nominated you for Mother of the Year this year, Tucker, but I don't think that they're going to take you. I took a photo of a man once and then he started aging in reverse. I found that picture that Davey was talking about. And I mean, it is impressive. Sometimes when I don't want to talk to people on the phone, I just tell them, oh no, there's a lost dog. I gotta help this dog. And then they think I'm a better person for it. You're welcome. For a while, I thought that the term fish house meant like it was a house that fish lived in. And I'm like, but it's above water. They're going to drown. Is that what happens to a fish when you take it out? Is it technically drowning? Because it's not in water, but they can't breathe anymore. You know, just think about this and like, what if they made a sequel to Big where Tom Hanks plays the grown-up version of himself now, but then he wishes he was small. You know, the third movie in the American Tail series was originally supposed to be called The Manhattan Project, but then they just changed it.
I'm going to pause this for a second and get a drink of water because my throat is parched.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of episodes, but we're only 42 minutes in.
Perfect.
We're almost done with the list, and then we can wrap it up.
I love it. If you Google Old West porn, you get a frustrating set of results because Google can't tell if I'm looking for porn set in the Old West or porn created in the Old West.
I'm excited to hear what that was.
Yeah, you're going to love it. I've been sitting on the website JJ Meets World, MEATS, for a long time. And I just finally came to grasps. Is it grisps or grasps? Grips. Is that what it is? Grips. I came to grips. It's not grasps. It's not grasps. Okay. Well, then the rest of this doesn't work because I worked out a rhyme where everything works with grasps. So, but if it's grips, we're just gonna end it right there. I was thinking about starting a poker TV show, but it's about people learning to play poker. And I wonder how many episodes I could get through before someone says, like, listen, I think that Dave Foley has got better things to do than teach a bunch of people how to play poker. I write Encyclopedia Brown fan fiction, but in it, he's solving the mystery of where his insurance ID card is. So it's mainly just chapters of him talking to his insurance provider, asking where his insurance ID card is. But it's there's some twists. I had 4 refills of chicken tenders. I lied. They smell like fried food. I want competition to be fierce, but I don't want people to come up to me in the streets and try and poison me. That's happened too many times, and I'm sick and tired of it. And no, I do not want your scone, dick. Hammers come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes, but my favorite for those hard to do projects is an MC hammer. I consider myself a strong man, but not as strong as some other men, but definitely stronger than most men. That dog I was talking about with Willie that had the huge nuts, I got one of the nuts. And so I'm going to trick him into kissing it one day. I don't know how, but one day. It's with a sad heart that we let our listeners know that our number one fan, Silver Mine Sal, recently died in a mine collapse. He was 118 years old, and he'll be missed. We have his canaries in the studio now, and oh God. When I was a little kid, my friend's mom had these really delicate decorated eggs, and they were hollow inside. Like someone had poked a pin and pulled out the egg and then decorated the outside. And they were really, really nice and like very fragile. And I broke one when I was a little kid, and I never told anybody about it. And I've always wanted to know, did she know? When we were first interviewing John Lamb, I thought he was this sheep that had been cloned at one point, and I was kind of disappointed to not see that it was a talking sheep, but it was actually columnist John Lamb. So if you tell me that Greg Giraffe, the guest we have coming up next week, is not a real giraffe, I'm gonna be pissed. I wrote a freestyle rap. Would you like to hear it? Okay, never mind. Do you think that there's a third Baker brother and his name would start with a C, like Charlie or Chip, Chance, Chris, Curtis, Chuck, Shalulu, Charles, Chauncey, Chanticleer, Church.
This is the intro or the Easter egg?
This is the Easter egg. Oh, that's Easter egg. Ah, 120 3-ply tissues, mouchoirs, ultra softness, dependable strength. Am I reading the back of a condom or a box of Kleenex? Kleenex. I own like 9 pairs of sunglasses, but they all are bent out of shape because I put them in my back pocket. I've got not a big butt, but a pretty dense butt. So most of them are all squished out. And I think that we're going to start offering those to Patreon subscribers. The way like some people sell their underpants, you can have JJ Squash sunglasses. Would you patronize us for that? I don't think it's funny when people make a Jimmy Buffett joke. His name is Buffett. Just say Buffett. Like, we get it. It's the low-hanging fruit of the dad joke medium. So stop doing it. I've been sending people to jjmeetsworld.com, and I thought it was MEATS. I look like such an idiot.
This is literally the 4th time you've brought up that joke on this show.
It's the 4th time I've made this joke. I have literally been sending people to jjmeetsworld.com, but I've been spelling it the way you see world on old maps where there's an E at the end. And now someone's squatting on that web address and they're asking for money, and I don't have the money. I don't have any money. All I've got are used Kleenexes. You know, if this Patreon thing works out with this exclusive episode, we're going to have to think of other immature things to do, like hair pulling. I was thinking one where we just toot into the microphones, but then the problem is no one will want to be a guest. I would like a duck shoved inside of a goose, shoved inside of a chicken, shoved inside of a turkey, shoved inside of an ostrich. What would I call it? Saturday night. Do not ask me to get a soup can down for you if you invite me to your house. I am your guest. I am not going to get down a soup can or that roll of paper towel that rolled to the back of the pantry. If I am a guest in your house, you can ask me one thing that involves height, and that's to give you a piggyback ride. And here you go, sir. This is your bill. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us at the Outback Steakhouse. We really hope you enjoyed it. There's a comment card in there. And if you had a good time, all 5s, my name is Dan. And if you didn't have a good time, all 1s, and my name is Mike. And we'll see you again real soon, okay? Good day. I actually peed my pants at a couple of sleepovers, and one of them was because my friends' parents' faces melted off like they did in Raiders. So I guess I should have brought that up too. We had a hamster when I was a kid named Spike, and we let Spike stay with friends while we were on vacation. And then we found out that they let Spike go in the backyard. I always thought maybe I'll open the door and there'll be a guinea pig on my doorstep. Now it's 20 years ago. Hey, I think there's a map on the bottom of this chair. What is it? Was it? Oh my God. I think we're having a Goonies moment. I did rob that school. Bill Paxton's character in Twister. That was my 9th grade Halloween costume. And I walked around telling people I want to get Dorothy off the ground. For reals. I'm not against cannibalism because I always say, you know, don't diss it till you try it. Wait, beaver is another word for vagina? Well, that gives a whole new meaning to our intro. I'll be damned. I have man boobs. And so I'm always worried when I'm holding a baby that they're going to try and suckle. So that's why I'm going to decline if you offer me a baby. Just know that. He gave me $5 to say he's the handsomest of the blenders. The reason I brought up yoga pants is because when Natalie showed up here, she was wearing these really long, tall pants, and there's a big hole in the back of her pants. And that's what made me think about yoga pants. So she doesn't know this until she listens to this, but she walked around with a hole in her pants. And I didn't tell her because I'm that kind of friend. There are certain brands where I say the brand and not the product. Like I don't say adhesive bandage. I say Band-Aid, but I will never say Kleenex. Never. God damn it. Except for right now. All of the pictures that Carrie has of me are from behind. So she must really like my non-existent butt. I think that if you and I were to start a wrestling duo, I think we should be the clergyman and you can be Friar Tuck and I'll be the cardinal. And like my thing is I'll throw baseball cards at people like phew, 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 phew. I can't believe that you said that Back to the Future 3 is the worst of all the Back to the Futures. It's just one movie when you really think about it. It's a continual storyline that never stops. It takes place in about 8 days of Marty McFly's entire life, and we get to see that. So I don't know why you need to crap on B, uppercase B, lowercase t, uppercase F 3. If I was going to dedicate a book to anyone, I would dedicate it to Ronald McDonald, but pretend like he was like the clown man was my uncle. And I would thank him for all the fries. I started a dart game called Tucker. But what you do is rather than numbers, you put different butts. And so you've got to get like a triple butt or a double butt. And they're like, well, which one? You'd be like pimply butt. Or that butt that's got the little dimples above it, little butt dimples. So if you would like the score sheet to Tucker, you're going to go to www.dartgametucker that JJ made up.edu/playablepdf.us. When they play the Wurlitzer, they put on these little like coats, these little like fancy man coats. And I always thought to myself, well, I'd love to do this, but I really only want to do it because I want a fancy man coat. Here's something that we don't really talk about in this episode, but Mrs. Stark puts her lipstick on really weird. She twists it out of the tube, and then rather than putting the tube horizontal to your lips like you would with chapstick or anything, she holds it vertical and puts it on vertically. And so it forms this weird kind of like a baby's bottle shape. It's really weird. You might think this is a German accent, but actually it's a Dilworth accent. That's only funny to this neck of the woods. Which Star Trek is it where they talk to God? Because if I were a pastor, I would just quote that movie all the time. Like that would be every sermon. And then he would finally like get a young person to be like, isn't that Star Wars? And I'll be like, yep. And then I'd never show up to that church again. I got to be honest, it stinks to high hell in here. I don't know what it is about Dungeons and Dragons, but it smells like a sweet BO. And God, I think I'm going to throw up. I'm worried that I never got out of the virtual world and that I am now just in some kind of weird in-between place. So if you see me on the street, would you please kick Tucker in the nuts? The thing I liked about old school video games was you could play them buck naked and the only person who would know would be you. That's what I miss. At what point do we realize that we are animals in the zoo of life and people are looking at us all the time? And if that's true, I would like to know what my official scientific name is. Jajicus totalicus. One time Steve Poitras big timed me, pretending he didn't know who I was when I was running for mayor. And I went up to him at an event and looking back on it, I don't blame him at all. I would have probably done the same thing to me too. So if you thought that movie was bad, you should watch Norbit, which I also own on Blu-ray. If they had attacked him on his butt, they would have like instantly killed him. They just needed to attack the butt. Did you notice how Katie and I were like dressed pretty much exactly the same today? Like I'm wearing a gray top. She was wearing a gray top. She's wearing really faded jeans, but I'm wearing these like gray shorts with a lot of white in them. If I was wearing some more jewelry, I think we would have been twins. Somebody is going to listen to this episode and is going to murder you, Tucker, with a plastic bag. Classic plastic bag over the head. And when the cops come and ask me about it, I'll be like, he chose his own fate. I'm thinking about writing a book. It's going to be called Seriously, SERIOUS-LEE. It's about a guy named Lee who's super serious. If I had to put them in order, it would be Fast and the Furious 7 is my number 1. The first Fast and the Furious is my number 2. Fast 4, 5, 6. Then Fast 3. The Hobbs and Shaw, and then the Tokyo Drift. All right, now that I've settled that thing with Jonathan Judd, another J.J. Abrams, you better be ready. I'm coming for you. Maybe everything should be in nugget form, like money and how building materials and love, all nuggets. I think that if people were smart, they'd start making a thing called a pancake pine, which is 3 pancakes in a stack, but then you shove sausage links in there. And so it looks like it's all, sticking out, and then you pour syrup over it. It's a pancake pine. If I was going to make a new version of Jurassic Park, I'd call it Jurassic Pork, and I would crossbreed pigs with dinosaurs. So imagine like a giant T-Rex, but he's got a pig snout. Imagine a world where Tucker is sitting in the hospital and they're like, "Bad news, Tucker. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. You've got wiener disease where your whole body smells like wieners, and like not good ones, like real bad ones. And the only way to cure it is to eat pickles." What does Tucker do? Stay tuned. When I was a kid, I had a VHS tape called Hard Hat Harry Takes You to See Big Trucks. And it made me want to have like a truck in my future. But now that I am an adult, I'm like, why was he taking those kids to work sites? It was incredibly dangerous. When I was young, my family went to Disney World. And I remember one of the coolest things about Disney World was I wasn't the chubbiest kid there, and that felt great. So I was reading Blaine's book. I'm pretty sure the character of Cynthia Ray Johnson is based off of me. Dempsey's has these like the most amazing hot dogs, but they're so cheap that I always think, am I going to get sick from eating this? I never have, but I wonder what kind of a lost leader they have for that. So a future episode will feature a hot dog specialist who can break down the abilities of hot dogs to customer interactions. You should seek out a YouTube clip of previous guest Steve Poitras saying goodbye to this episode's guest, Charlie Johnson. And I feel like there's a moment where they said goodbye and then there's a commercial break, and it's clear that Steve was supposed to say more about goodbye to Charlie Johnson because he comes back and pretty much reiterates everything he just said after the commercial break. It is, we're really putting the pieces together here at JJ Meets World. I know that there's got to be somebody out there who's splicing animals together. You're like, it's a beaver, but it's got a snake's head on it, but it's still got beaver teeth. Now imagine that swimming at you while you're trying to canoodle your lady. I think Chase must get his hair cut at the same place he's been getting it cut for years. I imagine him as a 26-year-old sitting on a panda, working on a sucker, and watching a cartoon while he's getting his hair cut. I can't believe she hasn't heard of Captain Ron. I think that's maybe she should have to like go back and, tell that to the board at MSUM. I don't know why people like eggnog so much. It's like you're eating uncooked batter for like a pancake. I took a treadmill that someone was throwing out once, and it sat in my garage for 3 years. And then I had to pay someone to take it away. That was a bad decision. Also, none of these characters asked if they could go to McDonald's. And McDonald's would have had instant hit points. When David was talking about jams and jellies, all I could think about was that peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly time. And I thought, if he does that right now, I'm going to piss my pants. What you don't see in this episode is at one point, Amber reaches out and holds my hand. And that was the most anxiety I had during this whole thing, because I was like, my hand's dirty. Her hand's dirty. We can't hold dirty hands. If we could clone a person, it should probably be Kurt Russell. I'll be damned. There is a raisin plant. There's really super hot cocktail sauce you can get called St. Elmo's Fire, and it makes me cry and makes my nostrils hurt when I eat it. But then I just go right back and I have another shrimp with it. And then I go right back and I have another shrimp with it. And based on the conversation with Deb, I must be 60 years old. Tom Wayne. Carrie disclosed to us that he was 22 years old when that Motley Crue story happened. And I really think that there's probably a part of him that goes like, why'd you have to be so lame? You probably have a travel alarm clock. I have an idea for a movie. And in the movie, I play a walrus who's trying to just learn what it's like to be a human. And it was going to be called Wall Us, the Bill Lucas story, but he's copyrighted that now. So if an acoustic guitar is the daddy and the ukulele is the baby, what is the mom when it comes to guitars? If I had to guess, and this is me just throwing it out there, I think it would be the strap that holds everything together. If I was going to write a song about JJ Meets World, it would be called Tucker and the Chubster. And it would be about our adventures trying to open up a fish sandwich joint in Nevada. And it would go a little something like this. Wait. If I had a twin, I would call my twin my womb mate. I think that if Jim Carrey were to come to my house and say, listen, I got to get away from the paparazzi. Can I stay here for a little bit? I would say, okay, but I would say, listen, don't mention the Majestic at all. For a while, whenever I'd think of Randy Long, I'd think of a day I was in a tutu filming a commercial across the street from his house. And he came over and he goes, oh, you sold out, huh? I remember one of the first times I met Sarah, we had a lengthy discussion about Sarah with an H at the end or just an A. And she threw some major shade at the people who just ended on an A instead of following through with a final H. And apologies to Sarah Watson Curry and the other 50% of Sarahs who just end on the A. John Strand has some of the best hand motions when he talks. And it's a real shame that you don't get to see those things, because I found halfway through the episode, I started mimicking those hand motions while we were recording. It's good stuff. I submitted a film to Fargo Film Festival that didn't get chosen this year. It's called JJ Rides a Bike. And it was about a poor kid in Lebanon who has to learn how to ride a bike. And they said, sir, we are not accepting videos on Laserdisc anymore. Mama's little baby loves shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. If I ever came downstairs and I saw that my mom was kissing Santa Claus, I think that would be grounds for divorce. Stop saying topsy-turvy. Stop. I know you turned your mic off. Stop it. Oh, man, I got to go poop. I told our sponsor I wanted to be paid in gold, and she said no, because you'll probably try and eat it like gold coins. And she's right. If I don't win in a board game, I'm the guy who flips over the table, but I usually apologize within a week or two. I think the real test for someone who thinks that they can feel your energy is for them to grab your hands, and if they're wet, they don't pull away. I was really hoping that while everyone's inside having to binge watch stuff, it would reignite a love of the John Lovitz animated series, The Critic. This is for Prairie and Prairie Only. Do you remember when you had to call me into the office at the Fargo Theater to ask me whether or not I had been messing around with a copier? That was one of the more awkward conversations of my entire life. Tucker, can our self-portraits be nudes as well?
No.
Little do they know, Chiptown is actually a formation of my new giant conglomerate, which is Chiptown, subsidiary of Chemical and Evil Co. I will never, ever do that stand-up routine again, but I will tell you that the name of it was called The Mary Kate. I still have a couple of those Muscle Man magazines. The one thing that I won't do is eat sushi off of a naked person. I'm very food adventurous, but that's just one thing. And it's mainly because I would be afraid when I put the soy sauce on, I would just put too much on. If I were to list craft stores in order of how much I dislike them, it would go Hobby Lobby, any fabric store, Michael's, the section of a major department store that has crafts, and then any basement that has more toothpicks than people. In Galaxy Quest, I love the fact that they come up with a phrase like the live long and prosper and may the force be with you. And if any of you have forgotten, it goes like this: never give up, never surrender. I don't want to show off no more. I don't want to sing tunes no more. I don't want to ride moons no more. I don't want to show off. From The Drowsy Chaperone, another really good book is The Card Catalog. So after just a quick bit of Googling, I gave Don Bluth a lot of credit for We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, but it turns out he had nothing to do with it. I do a really good impression of Templeton the Rat from Charlotte's Web, the Paul Lind one. Here it goes. What kind of a word would you like, Charlotte? Troy backwards is Yort. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.